Okay, 3 key sessions, 3 key workouts that you can do in order to smash your personal best out of the park. Now, by the end of this video, I'm going to go into detail on 3 the important sessions you can do to really move forward with your running, how to get there and how to do them, how to execute them properly and in the right way so that you can consistently do these types of sessions in order to go higher, way higher than what you're currently achieving. Now, I got a great question in the comments that kind of leads me nicely into this question. What would you recommend if you want to run a 16-kilometer race in 58 minutes? That's 10 miles in less than 60 minutes, so less than 6-minute miles. It is 3:47 per kilometer. I ran it this year in 1 hour, 4 minutes. But it seems like a very big improvement. If possible to, what would you do? Now, he says it seems like a very big improvement, but it's actually only 10% quicker than what he's actually run so far. So he's run 1:04 and he's trying to run 58 minutes for 16 kilometers. He's trying to get to 3:47 per kilometer. So it's only 10%. So first of all, we need to know where you're at right now. And by where you're at, I mean, what's the training background? What have you been doing so far? Are you used to doing speed? Are you used to doing, building your speed endurance? Are you used to running a specific long run that's going to help you run faster for those 16 kilometers? So what's your start point? If we start to add speed in, and he's never done it before, we need to be very, very gradual in the beginning, but we're going to see a massive benefit from that. Exactly the same with endurance. If he's just been going out there for an hour and a half, so far, it's all long, slow distance. Once you start to add specific long runs, it's going to be a big benefit from them, but you've got to be gradual in the way that you do that. So it might look something like, if his long run is currently 16 kilometers, it might look something like 5 kilometers quite comfortable, and then the middle sort of 5 kilometers at race pace, and then 5 kilometers quite comfortable again, something like 20% slower than race pace. So that might be the starting point, and then we build from there. But these 3 specific sessions that I'm going to give you, you can apply them to your own racing and to your own goals, and it will hopefully all make sense. Now, instead of 3:47, which is very specific, I'm going to work off 3:50. 3 minutes 50 seconds is exactly 230 seconds. So if we work on initially trying to go 10% quicker than that, why do we want to go 10% quicker? We want him to feel as comfortable as possible running 16 kilometers in 58 minutes. So running at 3:47 pace. So in order to do that, we need to get the body used to moving over the ground faster. So we're going to start with shorter intervals. So let's say, for instance, the first session is this: 4 times 4 kilometers at 10% quicker, so 3 minutes 25 per kilometer, and then 60 seconds rest in between. Now, if you've not done speed before, and if this is your first introduction, and running that fast takes it out of you already, then we can do one of 2 things. We can either slow it down and just run the target pace of 3:47 per kilometer, and just do kilometer repeats at that, and do 4 times kilometer, with 60 seconds rest in between, or we can go 5% quicker. It depends where you're at the moment, so it depends what you're comfortable. Remember, with an interval session, you've got to feel in control of that session. So it's about stretching the elastic band, but not stretching it too much so that you snap it so you get injured, or you have too many recovery days in order to run fast again. So it might look something like 3:25 per kilometer, 4 times a kilometer with 60 seconds rest in between, and then 4 times 400 meters. With a quicker speed, and see what you can control and pace those 4 times 400 meters, again with 60 seconds. So what we're doing is we're teaching the body gradually to run much faster than target race pace, much faster than 3:47. Again, another option, if it's too fast to run 3:25 per kilometer, what we can also do, instead of the kilometer repeats, we can bring that down and start with 400 meter repeats and do those at 3:25 pace. Now, initially, when you're running much faster than race pace, much faster than your target race pace, if you've not done speed, it's going to feel really, really difficult. And therefore, you want to be gradual with everything. So again, we keep the improvement curve or line as optimal and as steady as possible without taking steps back and without taking too many days off to recover, so that we can feed in and do the endurance run on the Sunday and the midweek interval session, or however you plan it. Next session, we might do something like, okay, we're going to be out there for 58 minutes, and so we want to hold 3 minutes 47 per kilometer. So I want to get used to running chunks of that at either that pace or faster. So what I would do, and a great session to do if you're marathon training, is 5 kilometer repeats. So you might do a marathon session, it might be 4 times 5 kilometers with just 60 seconds. And if you can hit that at marathon pace, or even quicker, It's going to make marathon pace feel comfortable, and also it's a long session that mentally you need to get your head around, and once you've boxed it off, you become mentally stronger because of it. For this 16K, that might look something like, okay, 4 times 2.5 kilometers or 4 times 3 kilometers at the pace that we're trying to run. So if we do 4 times 3 kilometers, that's 12 kilometers with just 60 seconds in between each 3 kilometer rep at the pace that we're trying to achieve, or a little bit faster. And that pace will become easier to go faster as the weeks of fitness start to accumulate. And again, it's all about being in control. It's about feeling like you've got full control, not just of the rep, but of the entire session. So there's 2 different sessions that you can implement very, very easily, and you can apply those to your own running. Now, the third one is very, very simply, how can we make the specific long run specific so we can hit 3:47 for 58 minutes and run 16 kilometers in a record 10% faster than what we're currently doing. Now that might look, depending on his start point, but let's say he's not new to specific long runs. So let's sort of like start with this. We might do something like, okay, we're going to do the long run. It's just going to be 16K. So it's going to be at the race. And there it's kind of an hour to an hour and 15 minutes in volume. It's brilliant. Specifically, we're going to make it, for the first 5K, we do 3:47 and then plus 20%. So if we say 3:50 and then plus 23 seconds and add 23 seconds, 46 seconds extra, then that would be our initial 5K. So 20% slower than race target pace for the first 5K. And we're also going to do the last 5K at that pace as well. So 20% slower than race target pace. And then for the middle 6K, which we're going to make increasingly longer over the weeks, we're going to do that at middle 6K. So we're going to be on our feet for the entire 16K, but we're doing the middle 6 kilometers at target race pace. Or you could do it either if you're new, if you've done speed before and if you've got that speed endurance, and if you're used to doing specifics, you're starting quite up there, then you can already do that at race pace or 10% quicker. Or if you've not done a specific long run before, if you've not put any pace into a long run, you've just done long, slow distances, so it's still a great starting point, and you've not done any speed, this might look something like, well, we'll start with maybe 6 kilometers to begin with, 20% slower than target race pace. 6 kilometers at the end, and then the middle 4 kilometers is at something like your current race pace. So is that 4 minutes something per kilometer? So these are really good sessions that you can then play around with. And then over the weeks, that specific long run would look something like, okay, we're going to do 4 to 6 kilometers at race pace or faster. And then we're going to go 7 kilometers, 8 kilometers, 9 kilometers, 10 kilometers. So eventually, when we get to sort of week 6, we're able to do a 20K or a 22K long run. So lots of time, much more time than we're going to be out there for the race. And we're able to do the middle segment at 3:47 per kilometer or faster. And there's no need to go much faster than 10 to 15, maybe 20% max. And you'll know whether you've got more natural raw speed or less, and whether you find it more difficult at the end of races, or it's easy for you to, you actually quite enjoy and it's easy for you to do these intervals. You'll know whether you're kind of more driven towards speed or you're more of an endurance horse. And you'll know those people around you. You've been at a running club or in a running group, there's people who can just go for what it seems like forever. And then there's people who are ahead of you in the interval sessions, but come short, whether you're running half marathon, 16 kilometers or marathon. So you've got to work to your strengths and also work on your weaknesses. But there's 3 very different sessions there. And essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to build speed. So natural raw speed by running shorter, between 400 meters and a kilometer intervals. Or if you want to work in minutes, between a minute and 5 minute intervals, or between a minute and 3 minute intervals. And then we're trying to work a lot more on that speed endurance, that natural raw speed, 1 to 2 minutes, 1 to 3 minutes. We're working on that. We're also working on that 5 minute volume. So it's like speed endurance. We can't hold it for an hour, but we can push this. And we'll raise that level of what we can do for 5 minutes. And that's going to feed nicely into the longer intervals. So when we're running a 2.5 or 3 kilometer interval, or if you want to turn it into minutes, a 10 to 12.5 to 13 minute interval, that's nicely moving into that zone, so you can kind of work in that zone and you're able to pace it. You know what it feels like to run the race pace or faster for a longer period of time. And then the specific long run, we're out there, we're building endurance, but we're also building specific race pace ready to not just ideally run 10% quicker than our current PB for 16K, but do even better than that. Because once race day comes along and we're used to holding it for 10, 12K in the middle of a longer run, what's that going to look like on race day? When you've got that nervous energy, there's people around you, you're trying to compete, you're pacing it, but then you're letting rip for the last 25% of the race, for the last quarter of a race. That turns that 10% improvement into 15, 20% improvement because you've got that race day energy and that adrenaline inside you, that fight or flight mode. Once harnessed and you've learned how to harness it and control it, really, 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 really powerful. Good luck, great question. And if you get anything from these videos, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. More great questions like that, please pop them in the comments.